The city of Chicago is known as the Windy City. While the name comes more directly in spite of its politicians known for being full of hot air, it's also stuck because of its literal interpretation because of the high winds in Chicago. Today we've got both hot air and high winds, except this time from the Coca-Cola of Kokomo Indy Elite Series drivers who are pushing the limits around Joliet's Chicagoland Speedway, and who all think they're the best, but they're the one that's poised to take home a champion. But with last week's wreck-filled race in nearby Detroit still fresh in everyone's minds, perhaps there's still little work to do 150 laps worth tonight at Chicago. Kyle Heyer alongside Tom O'Gorman for round number 6 of the season, 150 laps from this 1.5-mile speedway. Chicagoland, a home race for us here. Tom, not too far away, right across the street from Autobahn Country Club. Tonight, though, the 1.5-mile oval, round number 6.
Hey, Kyle. I missed you guys last week at Detroit. Sounds like I missed some interesting racing, but happy to be back this week here at Chicagoland, like you mentioned. Newly a home race for us, and finally, breakthrough for Adam Blocker. Picked up his first win of the season after being right off the top step a number of times this season. Can he continue it?
Well, hopefully he can. Again, he's kind of fighting from down a little bit lower in the standings than he's normally used to fighting. At the top of the board, though, a new points leader, Andreas Eich, as he leads the points for the first time this season coming into the weekend. And I think for Andreas, his consistency has really been what's key. And again, third place again last week at Belle Isle, so he's been crushing it, Tom, and I think he was quick as in qualifying until just now, so he's going to be good again tonight.
Yeah, he's been the most consistent by far. He has only finished outside of the top 10 once, and it was a 12th back at Pocono, so he's been very, very consistent. That's 4 third-place finishes on the season out of 6 races. It's just really, really consistent there. Philip Kraus slipped up a bit last week, and Christopher Demerit, who's maintained a third spot, but the top grouping are kind of spreading apart a bit more. 30 points lead for Andreas Eich, thanks to that consistency.
Trevor Greenfield on track right now making his qualifying effort. Joliet, Illinois, of course, that's where Chicagoland Speedway is relatively new, constructed in 2001. Of course, for 2021, it will not be operating. Closest finish of IndyCar history here at Chicagoland a couple of years ago. So it's known for putting on some pretty solid racing. One unique feature about this racetrack is that curved back straightaway. Now here in the Indy cars, maybe not too big of a deal. In the stock cars, though, following those big cars in front of you, sometimes you kind of forget that you're going in around a corner on the back straight. You can end up hitting that fence, but it does give you a little bit more leeway on the exit of turn number 2. Banking here is significant enough to hold you on the racetrack, but also the high line might be a factor here a little bit later tonight. The track is very abrasive. Tire wear will be a discussion, but right now qualifying is the point of interest. Philip Kraus on track this week with a new livery on board this car. Also a note, to my understanding, I believe that Philip Kraus has left Last Lap Motorsports and joined Team Talent. Now, as far as I know, this was an amicable split, but Kraus again changing teams and joining the team with Andreas Eich on board. So this is a big change, kind of mid-season. You don't really see that a whole lot, but here he is, and who qualifies 28th on his first lap out here.
I think to me that what might stand out the most to that is probably the setups of the cars. I think the teams are probably sharing a lot of information when they're developing the setups of these cars, and obviously that's going to be a big factor here in an open setup series. So if you were used to making your own setups or making your own decisions as Philip Kraus or anybody else, that's one thing. But as you see him dive all the way to the grass to cut distance on the final qualifying lap, if he changed teams and picked up a different quote-unquote engineer, a different mastermind behind those setups, that could be the biggest adjustment.
Well, it's kind of a risky call, but we'll see if it pays off for him. 7th in qualifying he will go, at least for now. A couple other drivers still on the racetrack, including 3-time winner this season, Christopher Demerit, who hasn't had the consistency of the start of the season, but I'd still say that he's a pretty decent threat for the championship, especially if he can find the role that he was on in the early part of the season. If he can get back on that, Tom, he's going to be unstoppable. But I still think Andreas Eich, the consistency he's had, he quietly goes out there for Team Talent and just finishes top 5, top 6, top 7. That's what wins you a championship. Demerit's kind of been all over the board after his opening really amazing stint in the series, so he's got to get back on track.
Yeah, if you haven't been with us for the season, Christopher Demerit came out and won 3 of the first 4 races. The only race he didn't win was the first road course at Barber, but he does tend to be the first one to make a little bit more of a bolder strategy decision, and he often won those races early on in the season because of that, but sometimes it puts him back in the middle of the field, puts him back a little further, and I think that has started to catch up to him just a little bit, putting himself in those higher risk positions, whereas Andreas Eich tends to be the one that is just a consistent, solid performer and takes what he can get regardless of making big, bold strategy decisions.
Well, Christopher Demerit's going to be starting from the tail of the grid here today. 35th in qualifying, did not get a very good lap. He was over a second off the pace. I have to imagine that he spun out at the exit of turn 4. I have to imagine that contributed to that lap time. Here's Matt Hollova in the 0-2 car, always a threat when we go to any racetrack, specifically though the ovals. He tends to have a better finish there, and here he is out of turn 4 on his first flyer. We've seen drivers go a little bit quicker on lap number 2. We'll see if he picks up. The first lap in a 25.6. And that will put him 35th, knock Demerit down to 36th, dead last of the drivers who have qualified. We'll see if he can pick up on his lap number 2 here.
To give you an idea just how bad or how wrong Christopher Demerit's lap went, the next closest car is only 0.7 off of pole. He's 1.1. Then it's only 0.2 to pole. So it's basically Holaba and Demerit that have not had good efforts so far. Holaba crosses with one more effort here. It's a good jumps way up into the top 20.
Yeah, 18th place for him. But have a look at this. This is amazing. We have 35 drivers within 2.5 of a second. That is unbelievable. This is an open setup series, Tom, to have that many drivers land that close to the pole. We have 13 drivers within 1/10 of a second. That's about the closest qualifying I've ever seen here in Indy Elite.
That's pretty incredible. And as I looked on the schedule, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first visit to Chicagoland for Indy Elite. Is that correct?
It might be.
It was listed as no previous winner from any season on the spreadsheet that they sent us anyway. So we're going to have a breakthrough winner for the first time as far as we know.
I just have to look at this. From 3rd down to 6th, all 24.92. That goes into the 1,000th to separate those. Our timing and scoring doesn't even go that, at least on screen visually, doesn't even go that deep. So it is very, very close at the top of the board. Before we get into the thing, let's talk about keys to the race today. 3 of them I picked out here this week, Tom. Don't hit the apron. We see this a lot at the ovals. We saw it a lot at Texas. If you catch the apron in turns 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, you're going to hook the car around. It's going to loop on you. You don't have a lot of downforce running the oval aero package this week, so making sure that you keep the car on the racetrack and above that white line is going to be paramount to actually finishing this race.
Then it's the pack returns. We've been away for a couple of weeks from a visit to Detroit Belle Isle. Obviously, that's a little bit different racing on a street circuit than here on a big super speedway. So getting back to that pack racing mentality, it's a bit of a shift.
A bit of a shift, even going back to Pocono, which was before Detroit. That racetrack doesn't really pack race in the same way that these 1.5-mile ovals do. The last race we really did was at Texas, and I remember how much of a mess that was. So making it through the first half of this race and then getting that second half is going to be very important. Also, precarious pits. The pit lane entry here is very, very fast. It's also very far from the racing line. I'm also concerned about front wing damage pulling off the racetrack. You got to make sure you do that in a way that doesn't damage those components, and also make sure that you call out when you're getting off the racetrack. There's no entry road here. So if you're in the middle of a pack and you need to hit pit lane, you better tell everybody you're coming so you don't get rear-ended from behind.
And that'll obviously be really critical under green flag pit stops if that does happen. Just back to that first key to the race, I'm curious. We saw drivers diving across the apron in qualifying to finish their flying laps. Do you know if that is going to be allowed in the race?
From my understanding, the whole racetrack is fair game here.
Okay.
As long as you don't come back up onto the racetrack and cause a collision, you're fair to use that bottom groove. I'm sure we'll see this racetrack be 10 lanes wide on the initial start of this race. Weather information, 77 in the air, 102 degrees on the racetrack. I expect that temperature to climb. That was a big concern in the paddock earlier this week, is the track temp going to be climbing into the 120s, 130s? This track, and all of Joliet, Illinois, this is known for having this super hot asphalt surface. It just gets baked in the Illinois sun. So I'd imagine that we'll see that track temp rise just a little bit here as well. So again, on the left-hand side of the screen, your qualifying lineup: Henry Bennett atop the board, then Kinsella, Doc, Blocker, Schowen, Carey, Kraus, Stouffer, Ike, and Watkins, the rest of your top 10. And looking at this list, there's one driver that I think we'll see climb up the order too, is Jason Brophy. He qualified 11th. His first ever run in Indy Elite was back a season ago at Homestead, the first race of the season. He went out and won that, so I'd expect him to be really good here tonight.
It's a good qualifying effort for Henry Bennett. He was on pole back at Homestead and then had a catastrophic start. I'm getting him confused with somebody else.
Wilson Nito is the driver.
He led an entire stint back at Homestead, finished 5th, has had some slip-ups specifically at Phoenix and Texas, which are kind of similar to tonight, so that'll be interesting to see. But he's starting in the prime spot. Otherwise, has been really close to and inside the top 5, a 5th, 6th, 3rd, and 5th. So he's 5th in the points overall in the championship. He's had a couple of those slip-ups, but honestly, the number of drivers that have had those are whittling down to practically none.
Right. I mean, thinking back to Detroit last week, what a mess that race was. That was one that we knew was going to be challenging, but Tom, it really caught out the field. There was 36 drivers that started and only about 11 or 12 that actually finished the race. Just a massive, massive amount of carnage and attrition there. So walking away from the street course back into the pack, you've had a week where you're sort of on your own and your own mistakes are what cost you the day. Now we're back to where other people's mistakes are going to cost you your day. And we've seen in the past tempers get a little bit high at the ovals. I expect we'll see more of that here tonight. Also keep an eye on the sun as we get later in this day. The sun will drop a little bit. The sun might be an issue, especially on either end of the racetrack. But now down to the racetrack for our gridding here this afternoon. On row number 1, we're going to kick things off with our starting lineup. And on row 1, starting on the inside this is again incorrect. I thought I had this sorted, but we didn't. So we're going to just go down to the racetrack again. Have one more look at the weather information now that the session's ticked on over. 77 and 98, but again, that's going to climb. You see the insulation on the racetrack. It's going to get hot and very slick very quickly. Also bumps, very bumpy around here, especially in turn.
I did notice, especially up against the wall, I saw the car really working the suspension coming off of turn 2 onto the back straightaway wall. And I was going to ask if that tends to have much effect. I, again, am relatively new to ovals here, so don't at me. But
at Tom O'Gorman.
Yeah.
At Tom O'Gorman.
But I did notice that specifically on the high side, it's going to be tricky.
You can actually see here, this is a great shot. You can see where the rubber is actually kind of baked into the racetrack a little bit deeper, all these lines. That's from where the car is compressing. And over the course of the race, this is going to get more and more apparent, but you can visually see how bumpy this place is. And yes, it is going to matter. So you got to be real cautious not to let that affect your day. Also, when you're in a pack, you got to leave yourself a little bit more air room when you're hitting those bumps.
So it's Bennett on pole, and I think it's Andrew Kinsella that starts second, if memory serves. And this is another driver that had a really good season going. A 17th to start it off, but then a 4th, 7th, 2nd, and 11th until finally he looks like one of the many drivers that had a poor start to a poor race at Belle Isle. Was listed as disconnected, didn't even finish the race in 23rd. So he's going to be looking to rebound, but that looks to be a really good starting position. What do we think about green race cars? Is that unfortunate or unlucky on the front row?
Man, IndyCar green, the number 13, which Kinsella is thankfully one off of. But I don't know. I'm not superstitious necessarily, but I know IndyCar drivers and teams are. And again, I'm surprised they've run green for this long, especially Henry Bennett without sponsorship on the side of the car. You can run whatever you want, but he's found success with the green. I don't think there's any reason to change it now. Christopher DeMerit, it is not gridded. And we are beginning to roll, so I don't think he's either going to start from the pits or not start at all. Flynn Lazier, Marshall Stanley, and Austin Espedy are also going to stay in the pits for the start of this one. It's just a surprise to me as Kinsella going to drop to the back, penalty points. And that good starting position, Tom, he's going to have to work for it.
And that moves Adam Blocker up to the front row, I believe, in the black and blue car on the outside. Last week's winner, last round's winner, at least. And now he's certainly been a big factor on a lot of the road courses, but tends to not have had the greatest qualifying that I can remember on the ovals. Maybe if he starts in the front row, he tends to race really well. That's going to be a big factor there.
I think today the drivers you're going to have to watch are Adam Blocker, Andreas Eich, and if that 88 of Jason Brophy can get up there, those three I think will be the ones to watch. Let's not count out Henry Bennett though. These two team drivers up in the front are going to be rock solid. So as we make our way towards the start of this race, again 150 laps will take us about 1 hour to complete this from flag to flag. If things go green. Now in practice we didn't see a lot of trouble at the very drop, so or at least in terms of track grip, so it should be nice and conducive to good racing here today. So, as we pull through turns 3 and 4, 150 laps, Henry Bennett alongside last week's winner, Adam Blocker from Detroit Belle Isle. And for race number 6 of the season, the SimTV 225 is green, 150 laps, and we're racing from Chicago. Lap 1 is complete. Henry Bennett's the leader. Adam Blocker slots into second, then Brian Carey third. Doc Stouffer now for 4th and 5th. And behind them, still double wide, 3 wide as everyone tries to get sorted out. This is real tight here. That's Trevor Greenfield on the outside. Aaron Ruff's in the 26 behind him, and Robert Maleshka in the 91 on the inside lane.
I think both of us holding our breath for them for the first lap just to get everybody through clean and clear, but we made it. It was Adam Dock making a high side attempt around the podium spots in 4th, but looks like he might have slot in line and actually gets swallowed up a bit by Philip Kraus.
A note about Christopher Merritt, the reason why he didn't start, because he didn't qualify. Only 33 allowed into the race, Tom, and didn't make the top 33.
Man.
And again, you're below that 33rd spot, just like the Real World Indy 500, you're cut from the race. So that's going to be detrimental to his championship bid this week.
Yeah, that's a massive miss, and unfortunately, it wasn't like he was very close. He had a big mistake in qualifying, was over a second off of pole, and that's going to be really tough to get in. No, 3 wide for the lead. It looks like up into turn 1. They fan back out. So far, it's looking like Bennett's sticking to the bottom line all the way around the track and just fending off any sort of attack. Blocker follows him wheel for wheel.
Yeah, this is one of those racetracks that I'd expect to see the high side get used a lot if we were in stock cars. But in IndyCar, I don't really know where the best line is. We're already seeing people migrate up the racetrack. Again, I don't know if this is one of those tracks that got the grip strip update. It might be. iRacing made some changes lately to to a bunch of the oval racetracks that gave them different grip levels depending on the lane you're running in. So we could see that outside groove be really, really solid. Here comes Brian Carey in that blue and white 79 on the outside and trying to hold off Kraus in the pink and white on the inside.
The pack returns is right. Look at this gaggle. I don't even know. What do you call a group of Indy cars? We've got to come up with a term for that. But a flop. It's just a huge scramble, and there really hasn't been much of separation. It looks like maybe the bottom 6 or so are dropping off the back of the field, but this draft is really keeping everybody nice and tight, and there doesn't seem to really be a great preferred line. Middle, top, bottom is working for everybody.
220 miles an hour. We're certainly not slow for pace here as we come out of turn 4 and complete lap number 6. Andreas Eich in the 76 working his way forward. He started just outside the top 5 and 9th and continues to work his way forward. On that outside groove, there's Jason Brophy in the 88. I mentioned earlier he's dropped or gone up a couple spots rather.
Yeah, so is Andreas Eich, who's right in front of them. Both of them have been kind of tag teaming the high side, and they're following Adam Dock, I think, around the top there. But they have been up there the entire run as far as I've been able to pay attention. The other big mover, I think, is just dropped down a bit, but it was just lost him. Kind of a teal chrome car up into third. Oh, it's Christopher. That's who I was looking for, up into third.
Yeah, here he comes in the number 13. He started this race back in 8th, so continues his climb forward as we're still double wide. And we're going to see this probably for quite some time until the tires start to wear off. Then we'll start to see him string out just a little bit. But this is a very comfortable moment right now. This looks ragged, but there's a lot of drivers we were riding on board with the 88. They're lifting. They're really kind of just coasting right now in line and just sort of ticking off laps. The problem with right now trying to advance forward is that there's really nowhere to go. And for drivers like Andrew Kinsella, he's only 28th quick, and where do you go? There's cars 2-3 wide. There's nowhere to go.
I was noticing the same thing, that this does not appear to be particularly frantic. It's busy for sure, and especially at 210 plus miles an hour. There's a lot happening, and things can happen very quickly, of course. But everybody seems much more content to be where they are than other oval races that I've watched in this series, where there tends to be a little more jockeying and even just big lane changes. I haven't seen much of that yet.
And we will, but I think this early in the race, everyone knows that this is sort of a marathon, not a sprint tonight, as Bennett goes down to the inside, Blocker follows, and Stouffer looks a little bit less convinced to stay in line, so he's going to move up the racetrack. There's Adam Dock in the 99 up there as well. And I'm keeping my eye on that yellow car and the white and red one. You mentioned that they were sort of working together, and here they come, 7th and 8th now.
Yeah, they haven't really broken formation, and the only car that's really changing lanes much is Chris Stouffer. He's the one that's kind of working down behind the leaders on the straightaway and then goes back up high for the corners, but now just gets nosed ahead by Brian Carey. I think started 4th.
Noticing this outside lane has got a lot more drivers in it than the bottom. I think they're very quickly figuring out that that's really the place to be. You can see how populated and how organized that top groove is. But I don't think it's going to be like that for the entire night. And again, I haven't seen Indy cars race here, I don't think ever, in iRacing. So this is going to be a different night, I think. Now, we might have been here once before with a different series, but it's a rare occurrence to see cars at this racetrack, and it's getting real frantic back here.
Ooh, don't hit the apron. Someone was just down there and made it back up onto the track. Really high now. Evan Adams gets some damage, potentially. Nope, comes back.
That'll reset itself there, and he's going to drop out of the field. I don't think he wanted to be in the middle of all that after making contact with that apron. Here is Riley Thompson in the 56, who led the early stages of the race at Detroit last week. Led a whole bunch of laps, actually, 13, I believe, before ending up in the wall in turn number 11. So he's got a long way to go. I think the ovals have been sort of his Achilles heel this season, and I think the road courses are where he's better off, but you're learning every time he comes out here. He's up 10 spots already. It's amazing how much less frantic this looks from on board than it does from outside the car. Everyone's just kind of cruising right now. And that's a good way to take off laps and get to the end.
Yeah, very reminiscent of when you finally get a breather on the LA highways or something. Everybody just brings the speed up to about 90, but everyone's just rolling. And the question is, how long are the fuel stints and when is go time?
Well, again, we're going to see fuel stints probably between 30 and 40 laps roughly. So we're already kind of halfway through that. We're going to split this into a handful of pit stops. And running to the end, I'm more worried about also tire wear. And we're not seeing a ton of drop-off just yet, But I think the tire wear is not only going to change the pace of the car, but also how they interact with each other on the racetrack. So you're going to get a lot more understeer later in the run, but I don't think we've seen that's been significant in any way really this season, which is surprising to me, but fuel is really more the story and what will pin you to pit lane.
Andreas Eich and Jason Brophy, both of the cars on the high side there, up to 6th and 8th respectively, and the next car behind them is Tanner Watkins. Oh, someone's around.
Yeah, so he's going to stay green for this, but that's Charles Ante, who's looped at the exit of turn number 2. Let's go back and see exactly how he found himself in that spot. He was on the inside of Joe Branch at the exit of turn 2. And his car just steps out.
Wow, that was a very, very slow, lazy spin. And actually, I think this driver had a very similar incident back at Texas, which is a similar speedway. But good to see it keeping green. The driver I was going to point out is that black car on the high side. That's Tanner Watkins, who's slotted in behind a couple of the cars he had been up to 8th, but now is back to 10th. So kind of yo-yoing up and down the field. But
whoa, there's on the inside. Is that Matt Holliba? Is that Aaron Roofs? Yes, and in the 26. That was a little dicey. Everyone's getting a little racier now. I think they're starting to feel comfortable. They're starting to kind of push it and find a line that's going. With the 15 car of A.J. Burton rim riding all the way against that safer barrier.
When it really paid off for him. Look at the slingshot down the front straightaway. Cuts across all the way to the bottom in front of Matt Holliba and picks up a couple of spots from that, up 5 in total. But he might have just figured something out. Look at the momentum he could carry.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the problem is you're going to show your hand too early. Everyone's going to start copying you, and that advantage is going to go away. But he's sort of roadblocked in here. I think 1 and 2 is better for the high line. 3 and 4, I think it's a little too bumpy up there to make it work. He's going to go to the bottom of the racetrack now and try to tuck in underneath Tanner Watkins in the 24. For the top spot, Henry Bennett has slid in behind Adam Blocker in the 74.
Saw Blocker take the middle of the track through 3 and 4 and must have been able to carry some speed down the front straightaway to close the door and take the lead. So this will be his first lap led.
Across the line, Blocker leads the first of the day for him. And here's Andrew Wood in the 64 car up the inside. Another driver we typically see kind of up the grid here in the oval side of things. Started 12th, up to 8th. A little bit of momentum loss on the straightaway, though, on the inside. I think that's what people are figuring out is that with this newer IndyCar body, this IR18, less downforce than the predecessor, the DW12, it races a little bit more stock car-like, just like a really light stock car with very pushy tendencies, at least in the middle of the corner. So the rim riding in the outside groove is probably going to work better than it would have before. We got 3 wide up the road with the 76 on the outside and the 99 of Doc on the inside. That got a little spicy.
Yeah, it almost looked like Doc got loose, similar to Charles Ante's incident, kind of went to the bottom of the track. And look at that. They've been following him for maybe 5 or 6 laps, almost since the green flag, in fact. And now finally Andreas Eich and Jason Brophy both get the high side with no interference and will try the slingshot themselves.
Look at the run that the 76 car gets.
Wow.
And Brian Carey's going to see it come and moves up the racetrack, but Brophy has a little bit more of a run. Doc now pulling even on the straightaway, but then back to the corner, this outside groove. Look how much faster you can go on the outside lane.
That's pretty unbelievable to see that. That's got to be at least closing in on 10 miles an hour closing speed with the car on the bottom of the track. And the progress they've been able to make as soon as they got clear from Adam Doc, who had been the leader of that high side. Henry Bennett tries to protect. Doesn't quite make it on the high side. Andreas Eich slingshots almost all the way to the lead.
Here he comes. This is dead even for second place. Side by side into turn number 3. It's Bennett and Eich side by side. Then Brophy and that's Stouffer on the inside behind them for 4th.
High side doesn't seem to pay off nearly as much through 3 and 4 as it does through 1 and 2. Coming onto the front straightaway, so maybe you want to be high in 1 and 2, low in 3 and 4. The hard part is getting down there if you're pinned up on the high side.
Watching Philip Kraus here. Keep an eye. Look at the momentum they have to give up on early corner entry, not to push into the wall, but then you can just throttle up and just slide around the outside groove. Didn't gain a lot that time. Again, it's easier at the front of a line because you're not fighting any aero push on top of it. And the other thing with the wall is that if you slip up, you only have 10 feet to catch it before you end up into it.
Kind of like the rain line on a road course. You've got to put yourself near the outside grass, but your margin for error goes to nothing. If you're on the fast spot on the racetrack. Any formation that had started to break this field apart has now compressed itself back down. All 33 cars that are circulating are still just glued together.
Blocker on the inside defending from the 007, who looks high into turn 1. Andreas Eich's going to go higher.
Man, that slingshot into 1 on the top of the racetrack is just wild to see the speed differential between the cars. Oh, big shuffle.
That was the 15. of A.J. Burton. They had a bit of a touch there coming down the back straightaway. Here's a look at that from up above. On the inside, was that the 26 car? Yeah, right there. Just gets loose and just tags him. That could have been a big one there. Time to gather the back up. And now here's Ike to second, and he's going to have a run to the outside. But tuck in behind, grab some slipstream, and then back up to the top again. He is moving forward and moving forward very quickly. Very quickly,
and bringing one of your picks, Jason Brophy, right with him there in that highlighter yellow. The question I have is, the leader of this race, regardless of whether it's been Blocker or Bennett, has stayed glued to the bottom of the track, not only in the corners, but down the straightaways as well, as straight as they are anyway. And I don't know, do you know, maybe is there a difference for the leader to not run the high line versus the cars that are seemingly making massive progress and finding big success with that? Have they just not noticed?
I think for Adam Blocker, he doesn't have any aero push to deal with. He's got clear racetrack ahead of him. The inside line is the shortest way around. I think when you're the leader, the bottom is probably the place to be. Everybody else behind, though, can use that outside lane to get momentum relative to the other car. They're not getting momentum on Adam Blocker. They're just getting momentum on the drivers that they're holding down underneath them. So Blocker can use the whole racetrack, but he's got grip right now to stick to the bottom, probably adjusting some weight jacker as well to help him keep that car rotated in. But right now, he's got it on lockdown, but when Ike gets up here and starts to race him for this lead, it's going to change how Blocker, I think, defends.
I have to imagine Andreas Ike is watching Henry Bennett come closer and further away as he moves up and down the racetrack through the corners and on the straightaways, trusting that he's going to stay at the bottom, at least give him a little bit of a lane. But
this is great racing, by the way. IndyCar is
spectacular.
This is, thinking back to the DW12 days, it was a lot more like this, a lot more pack racing, especially at Indianapolis. But I kind of miss this. Again, the IR18 was made to give more to the driver and where they could actually drive the car. But in doing that, they eliminated all this downforce to the point where you couldn't follow anybody without having aero push develop, and there was no downforce to make up for it. So the car has changed. But in certain climates, it just thrives, and this is a great example of racing. Keep an eye on pit stops upcoming here shortly, especially for Adam Blocker, who's just been pushing against the wind by himself for the last 15 or so laps.
Almost wonder if Bennett let him go through a couple laps ago, maybe 10 laps ago, to just try to save a little bit of fuel. Those are the kind of moves we saw Christopher Demeritte really succeed with early on in the season. Unfortunately, not making the field. He won't even get a chance to gamble from the back this time, but I have to imagine the pit window is going to open, like you mentioned, before lap 40, so we're probably pretty close here.
And getting to pit lane again, the field's still pretty stacked on top of each other. We should also note that Evan Adams is done for the day on pit lane. That car had damage early, and it doesn't look too bad, but I think he pulled off knowing that it wasn't going to be competitive. Here's A.J. Burton side by side with Tanner Watkins. This is for 11th. Look at the run he gets on Andrew Wood, who had to lift at the exit of turn 2, and here comes Burton with a huge run at the exit of 2, down the back, not so straight.
Ooh, really almost got into the front fascia of Andrew Wood's car as they were trying to both get to that high side to get around the outside of Brian Carey. Carey runs 10th right now, so these guys are looking just outside the top 10 in. We'll finally make it past him, actually shuffling him back to the 11th.
Burton still rim riding, only out of the throttle just for a moment to let the car settle, but now in the slipstream down the straightaway. Starting to experiment a little higher again in turn 3. This is the highest we've seen drivers run, but look at this line that's forming up here, Tom. Very different than I was expecting to see today. I thought the bottom would be the place to be. The outside, you could kind of make something happen, but it seems like the outside is the place to be if you're in traffic.
Yeah, and it's at least more conducive to dealing with aero wash, as we're only seeing the second place car able to run down at the bottom other than the leader. Now finally pulls ahead, does Andreas Ike. We've seen this happen once or twice before, but maybe this is the lap. Keeps him nice and low. Going to get the slingshot onto the front straightaway. Who leads across the line? This is going to be a learning moment for whether or not you want to be on the high or the low side for the finish line. It would have been Bennett if that was the checkers.
Yeah, also keep an eye on the way the track is rubbering in as well. The track is going to rubber in more quickly on this outside, given what everyone's doing right now. And as the rubber comes in, the stickier it's going to get. Then it crosses this transition point where you don't really want to be there because it's gathering too much temp. Might see the line go back to the bottom. But this is insane how much we're seeing drivers migrate to that high side there.
Yeah, essentially third on back until we get outside the top 10. One brave driver goes low.
Into turn 1 at 215 miles an hour. That's what makes this IndyCar racing so much more fascinating to me than watching stock cars, is that now that the stock cars have been sort of neutered, these cars just go so fast to the point where it is truly a spectacle, even in the sim racing world. And also, to our point earlier about the lines developing, look how much you see those perpendicular lines of rubber developing in the racetrack. So all that compression is beating up these virtual race cars. You won't necessarily get floor damage from it. It's not that severe, but just something to keep a note on.
I think that's Tony Schowen a little bit further down in the top 10, running at the bottom. There he is in the 31. He's the only one really trying to run it now, except for Andres Ike. Shifts low. Maybe he's going for a pit stop.
Yeah, he's slowing, and he's going to hit pit lane right on lap 39.
Oh, look at that pit entry. Huge yaw. That's incredible.
I told you, precarious pits was one of our keys to the race, and I didn't say it for no reason. It is hard to get onto pit lane here. Harder in a stock car maybe, but you still have to contend with the apron in a very fragile Indy car with that front wing assembly. Here comes that 88 car up to the outside groove, and
yeah, with the pit stop from Ike, that promotes Jason Brophy to the lead pack on that high side. It's still just Adam Blocker and Henry Bennett running at the bottom. Things getting a little more interesting through the top 10, though, as drivers changing lanes down the straightaways. Brophy goes high, almost gets a look to the lead, has cleared Bennett, and is starting to bring Adam Dock with him.
And I just did get confirmation this is one of the tracks that got those surface abrasion updates, which is why that outside lane is so competitive. And that's kind of on par with what we'd expect to see here, although I haven't seen IndyCar at Chicago for quite some time. Henry Bennett hits pit lane.
He tried, but he was very, very outside of the groove when he was getting down there. It looks like there was some major drama, a lot of brake lockup as well. Look at how late he transitions from the race course down to the apron.
Right there, locks
way
up.
Past, yeah.
Big lockup, and whoa, just made it to that yellow cone. But he is in, and so are Jason Brophy and Adam Blocker from the lead and third. They're going to come on down.
Blocker nice and composed. Whoa, that was a big moment from Adam Dock trying not to get into Jason Brophy. So the can of worms is opened on the pit stop. I think lap 40 coming to lap 41 was our first. That was Andreas Ike.
Philip Kraus leads his first lap for his new team after switching from Last Lap Motorsports to Team Talent. And he's going to hit pit lane by himself this time and bring with him the 13 car. And a whole lot more. Here's Andrew Wood, Joe Branch, Riley Thompson, Liam Quinn, the 04 of Mike Kitchell all on pit lane. Matt Pavelski leads in the 75. Here comes Burton to the inside groove. And full pit stop situation underway at lap 44. A little bit longer run than I was anticipating. So between 40 and 50 laps is our adjusted pit window here.
Riding with A.J. Burton, his teammate from I-5G is directly behind Matt Pavelski. He actually had been following Pavelski for most of this run, so they've finally swapped spots. But these 5 cars have been able to save a lot of fuel running just at or outside of the top 10 for the first 45 laps of this race.
So front 3, Burton, Pavelski, and Schowen. Then Andrew Kinsella, who's fighting from the tail of the grid after his EOL, is going to stay out another lap. Spin, crash, Burton sliding. Caution is out right in the middle of a pit stop sequence. That traps a handful of cars a lap down.
Oh, it took all 3 of them with it. Burton and had the spin, but Pavelski and Schowen both had to avoid.
Let's have another look. Burton out of turn 4. He's going to grab that apron too early and straddles it for too long and goes for a spin. And the other drivers around him had to bail out of pit lane because they cannot enter pit lane when pit road is closed. Now, if we ride on board again with Pavelski, we should have a pit light on the left-hand side of the screen, so you should be able to see pit lane. No, it does not have the fancy new lights yet that iRacing has implemented, but he bailed it, and he will not get a penalty because of that. So that was good, smart thinking by Pavelski to see that happening and bail off a pit lane. This is going to shake things up, though, mid-pit cycle here.
It is unfortunate, though. Both of those team cars had been running right there in the top 10, saved a lot of that fuel, and it was actually Matt Kingsbury that had to avoid the incident. Tony Schowen made it through nice and clear, so he will be the leader just behind the pace car, and now finally the pit lane is open and they can attempt once more. Yeah,
so what is going to happen here, from my understanding, is that we're going to have everybody basically get a wave around. So they're going to get right behind the pace car. Everyone that was out on the racetrack is now going to hit pit lane. We're going to wave the entire field back around, but for the drivers that were on the lead lap and hadn't made their pit stop yet, this is going to work out real good for them. Tony Schowen leaves pit lane in the 31 car. Andrew Kinsella, Pavelski, Kingsbury, Burton, Holliba, the rest of the top 6, and Tanner Watkins, Ray Kingsbury, Greenfield, Ike, Blocker, Kraus, Stouffer, Wood, and Bennett, the rest of the top 15. Henry Bennett did not have a very good pit stop sequence. He dropped a couple spots in relation to those he was racing earlier.
Part of that might be down to that pit entry that we saw. He was really, really late getting to the pit lane, but I almost wonder if he was waiting on purpose, because we've seen how hard it can be to transition from the apron to the apron from the track.
Right.
He basically waited until the track had leveled out and then really cut hard left to get to the pit lane. it could be, excuse me, it could be intentional, but it certainly looked like an accident.
Well, going back to our keys to the race, don't hit the apron and precarious pits were 2 of those 3. And both of those kind of came into effect for the first run here tonight. We didn't see anybody hit the apron in the race green flag period because everyone was up against the safer barrier, rim ride in the place. So it will become an issue coming down pit lane, and that's one of the reasons why. This is also why when we ran at Homestead, we ran with the version with the pit access road because the transition off the banking is even rougher there. So if you have the option, you want to enter in turn 3, but you'd give up too much time getting on the apron on the backstretch.
So just looking down the list, outside of wave arounds and antics that happen here under full course caution, it looks like Matt Holliba might be the big winner from the pit cycle. He's the last driver that pit before that caution came out. Yeah, look at him all the way up into second. Maybe that lead car. Who is that? Just in front. The blue and white.
That looks to be the 20 car of John Downing, who I believe is 2 laps down, also picking up a wave around potentially here, but he's going to have to drop to the back, I think, because of his current position.
Gotcha. So Holliba, to give you an idea, he's been running around, I think, just at or outside the 10th, 15th position. The amount of fuel that he saved running there allowed him to leapfrog a massive number of cars on the pit cycle, as was Tanner Watkins, Ray Kingsbury, Trevor Greenfield. All those cars were nowhere to be seen in the first stint. Andres Eich was the first. He runs 10th now.
So out of turn 4, we've had a split about a third of the way through this race, and we're going to get a couple more wave rounds here. The 20 car should be one of them. About a third of the way through this race. So what we saw was a pretty intense pack race. Now the pit window would have split everything back up into a bit more single file, kind of run your own race. But now Holliba is
also getting a wave around.
Yeah, this is weird. I didn't expect to see him. Oh no, this should be the entire field, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Gap from Kinsella to Holliba, 45 seconds, so that will come on down. So going back to what I was saying, this run, the next one I would have expected to be a lot more strung out, but now that we're resetting, it's basically hitting the reset button at lap number 50. This race is now, instead of 150 laps, it's 100. So going to kind of change nothing really, except the running order. And now this race is a little shorter. We're going to see a bit more aggression, I think, because everyone's sort of comfortable now with what they've got, and the people they're racing around, I think we'll see things tack up a little bit here on the restart.
Well, and the flat-out run is somewhere between 40 and 45 laps. We're going to get the green flag after lap 50, which means only 100 to go with some fuel saving and maybe a little bit more caution. This is reasonably a one-stop-to-go race at this point for everybody in the field.
Yep, and we just did get another lap of caution here to let everybody else catch back up. So the lights are back on the pace car, which take your pick of make, model, headlights, taillights, grills. It's something. I thought it looked like it's got like a Toyota Camry rear end, like a 2015 Camry rear end, and like a Ford Fusion Audi A something or other.
We'll call it a manufacturer vehicle.
Yes.
Make, manufacturer, model, vehicle.
All right, there's the one. The green lights are off again on the pace car. Re-racking and restacking here for a restart. Every time we come to the restarts, we always talk about IndyCar, single file, run the rim. You don't want to get past. You cannot pass to driver's left until you pass the start-finish lines. That means that Pavelski will probably aim for that outside groove, throttle up and go. We also see a lot of stack-ups here on this style restart, although I think we've gotten all the silliness out of the system doing that a few times. So we should be good to get back racing here with 100 laps left.
This is the first time in memory that the high side is both where you want to be on the restart because you don't want to get past to your left, or to your right, but also where you want to be for speed for a lot of the field. So that's going to be interesting to see how quickly does Pavelski take the green flag and drop to the bottom. That's where we've seen the leader run, or does he maybe just stick to the high side for a lap or two and get the momentum back up?
Yeah, I think we were talking about this at Bristol last night for the Outsider Racing League race, is that on the restarts, no matter where you are, generally you want to take the inside groove because as you're accelerating, you're not really going full speed into turn 1, so you'd rather have the short way around than the fast way around. So that's what I would expect. But Pavelski's going to take everybody up to the wall just as a security measure. There's one car way down on the inside. That, I believe, that's a lap car, I believe.
Charles Ante, I think.
Yes, it is. So he's a lap down and good to step out of line. Green flag back in the air. 100 laps to go from Chicagoland, and Matt Pavelski leads him to the green. Holliba pops out of line on the 20 car, the 15. What car is that down there? That is the 20 car of John Downing, who are in line, laps down. Big mess forming in the middle of the pack here. There's Adam Dock, Philip Krause, Henry Bennett, some of the drivers that were in our front pack earlier, but now have to fight back through traffic just a little bit. There's Andreas Ike at the pointy end with a big run to the outside. He's going to take it on Trevor Greenfield.
Bit of indecision, realizes he wants to go high, and then tucks in behind Adam Blocker. So these are a couple of the front runners from the first stint, much further down in the field. They haven't experienced this quite yet, so they're going to have to be pretty adaptable at this stage in the race to get back towards the front. And just motor away on the straightaway with that slingshot.
Yeah, now in front of him, there's Ray Kingsbury in the 25, who is currently 6th. Adam Blocker, who is the race leader prior to the caution flag.
I was going to point out that 25 car, Ray Kingsbury, is 4th in the championship and has been pretty consistent throughout. There's a couple of slip-ups, as many have, but now that he's back up towards the front, he might have a great championship run going here tonight as well.
Don't have to be perfect, you just have to be better than everybody else, and that's sort of been the key this season, is that you don't have to be the best driver on the racetrack, but as long as you can be moderately okay, generally, yeah, you'll be okay.
And he's got a great opportunity to capitalize on Christopher Merritt not being in the field. That's the next car on his radar as far as championship points go, but he's also got to get a good finish. There's still two-thirds of this race to go before he can pull that off.
On board again with the 76, in behind the 20 car. Adam Blocker is the next driver for position just up the road in that blue car at the top of your screen.
20 of John Downing is the next car in front of him. That's lap traffic, but not making it easy for him to get through. He's actually losing time on Adam Blocker. Andreas Ike needs to make quick work of Downing as he actually just gets passed, I think, by who was that just behind? Maybe Stouffer.
It was the 64 of Andrew Wood that took a look but didn't get the pass done. In the background, there's Henry Bennett to the inside of Jason Brophy. Saw some sparks there, so people are definitely hitting the floor on some of those bumps in 3 and 4. And if you're getting sparks, you are potentially damaging the race car as well, so be cautious. I mean, this is probably flashback for you back at Pikes Peak International Raceway in turns 1 and 2. Slamming the bumps. Maybe not quite as bad as that, but pretty gnarly.
Not quite. I certainly wasn't going 200 miles an hour when I hit it, but it still wasn't very comfortable. On the pit stops, Adam Blocker was the only car on the entire field, I think, that had a pit stop under 8 seconds. So he really did a good job of the pit lane, or got lucky on the roulette, whichever one. That explains why Blocker is so much further up the field than who he was running with. Henry Bennett was over a half a second slower on the pit lane.
For the lead, A.J. Burton with a run, Pavelski protecting the bottom. So what we're seeing here, very clear that if you're leading, stick to the white line.
Yeah.
If you're anybody from third on back, you want to use that outside group. That's what I've seen so far. I don't know if that's how the entire race is going to go, especially if the weather changes a whole lot. But so far, weather's climbed, but it's not significant enough to the point where it's really going to drastically affect the race car.
I don't know that I would say we 100% know if you're leading the race you want to be at the bottom. All the leaders have done that, but we haven't seen anybody really try to lead from the high line. So I wouldn't entirely rule it out, but I agree. It's tried and true. You know if you're in the lead, you can run the bottom of the racetrack, and people probably won't be able to get by it.
There's a swipe out to the right for A.J. Burton, but then hits the wall of air and can't go anywhere. Behind him, it's getting a little scrappier, and the whole field condensing back together again, as we see on these big ovals. The field strings out, and then they kind of suck right back up to each other after the draft comes into effect. And Blocker is towing a train up on the outside group. Look at all those cars in line.
Huge train. It's Blocker, Holliba, Watkins, Ike, Wood, and on back.
Holliba goes to cover from the Kingsbury driver on the bottom in the 25, but can't get there in time. Watkins holding up the train just a little bit. Chris Stouffer out of line just a touch, and Philip Kraus has nowhere to go.
Actually, Ray Kingsbury just picked up a spot with that navigation down to the bottom of the track through 1 and 2. Now goes back to the bottom. He's kind of working with Matt Kingsbury, so it's both Kingsburys down at the bottom. Matt in the white and gold, and then Ray in the middle now in the black and gold, shows the nose on the inside of Holliba and picks up the spot too. Maybe these fresh tires work a little bit better at the bottom of the track for a couple laps.
Yeah, and I'd expect that. More grip, you can kind of stick yourself to the bottom of the racetrack, but as time goes on, the outside will get easier to run and pay off more over the course of the race.
Kingsbury, though, has picked up 2 spots in 2 laps, working the bottom line. We're really flirting with the apron. That was close. You don't want to pick that left front onto that lighter surface down there under the white line.
Burton has Adam Blocker. Here comes Holliba, though, with a huge run on the outside. And full throttle at this point. The track is rubbered in enough that you don't even have to lift.
It's either good or lucky. I'm not sure which. For that, A.J. Burton was the driver that had that spin to bring out the caution, and it really didn't affect him much. Look at him still running in second. He's completed the pit stop, same as everybody else. There's really no reason for this driver to be off strategy or off any worse position than the rest of the field, even though he went for that pirouette trying to enter the pit lane.
Well, A.J. Burton historically has been very, very good on these ovals, especially Fontana. So I wouldn't expect anything different, but again, track position jump certainly helped. Matt Hollaba is looking really racy though, and gets to go to the outside. He's gotten through Blocker and might end up in the lead of this race the way he's going.
Not quite sure where he came from, actually. He was behind the Kingsburys a couple laps ago, and now is 3 or 4 cars up the road attacking for the lead. Fan out, high side. It's a little bit of a slingshot, but not much this time through.
Yeah, in 3 and 4, I just don't think you can get as good of a run. But when you get down here to 1 and 2, watch this gain that Hollaba will get. He's going to stick to that outside groove. Well, he's actually going to tuck in the line, and then look at this run he's going to build right here. Out of turn 2.
Seems like it really pays off on the very, very entry of turn 1 on that aggressive banking. When it picks up the banking, it really slingshots you into the corner. He didn't really use that time, though. He kind of tucked in behind A.J. Burton and didn't have anywhere to go. Tries it again.
Up on the outside, a little bit more progress made that time. Blocker sitting in behind, and I think he's just going to pick whatever line goes at this point.
Well, maybe now we already observed you can go flat out at this point with as much as the track is rubbered in. I almost wonder, does that kind of mitigate how effective the high side can be? Because if you can go flat out, everyone's flat out and everyone's going the same speed.
Well, it could, and that's one of the things that we're sort of discussing here is as the night goes on, the rubber is going to come in, the track's going to grip up in a lot of places, and it is going to decrease the efficacy of some of the different lines. It also might enhance them. When we get over that point where you're rubbering in the top side too much, it'll get a little hot and greasy. Then you want to move down to the bottom of the racetrack again and try to find some new grip. 67 laps into the race here, closing in on halfway. You mentioned it's pretty much a one-stop race from here if you plan it out right.
Yeah, you really got to save a lot of fuel. So, in fact, we may not even be watching any of the drivers that are big factors at the end of this race, and we should really keep an eye on the drivers that might be, who are, in my opinion, Henry Bennett, Philip Kraus, Jason Brophy. They're 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. They have a massive opportunity right now to be saving fuel. Andres Eich down there in 10th. These are all drivers that were up at the front for the entire first stint, now have shuffled back towards the middle of the pack, and we know from watching that first green flag run, you can really save a lot of fuel back there.
I'm just still surprised to see so many drivers go to that high side. It seems like this is almost like reverse Martinsville, where if you get out of the inside or out of the outside groove, you're just going to get shuffled backwards. So it's almost like you have to stay up there to survive and keep your spot. But then you get to the front, and it's just not as effective. So it makes you wonder, what really is the advantage of going up there? Is it as much as we've seen earlier? Because I think that advantage is beginning to die off. Hollaba struggling, but this is also what we saw Andreas Eich run into earlier, is you kind of hit this wall of air, and there's not really anywhere else you can go from here. So Hollaba might have to try something different if he wants to move forward, but he might be content right here for now.
It's almost like there was a 10-lap window where the high side was really awesome. Just like gave you the run of your life, and now that has certainly died off, I think. Andrew Wood has picked up a couple more spots on this run in front of the Kingsburys again. But Andreas Eich is really the only driver that has started to progress up the field a bit. There in the white and red kind of candy cane looking car back there in 8th.
There he is, and he started this race in 9th, so overall he hasn't really gone anywhere, but we've seen him climb forward and then drop back, and he's been doing a lot of work, but at this point in the race doesn't look like a whole lot tangible.
Yeah, I think he came out of the pit stops outside of the top 10, so he's at least worked his way back inside there, but Henry Bennett on his left takes the position away. He's got a nose ahead. They're drag racing down the back straightaway, down into turn 3. I have to imagine Eich will take the spot on the high side. No, actually Bennett is still to his left on the bottom. Look at that run he just got, past 2 cars in the green and red.
Yeah, again, I think this bottom lane, with less rubber in it right now, is a little bit better than that outside groove, which is starting to kind of, again, everyone's been running up there the whole race. So as it gets rubbered in, you're going to want to kind of look for fresh racetrack. And that fresh racetrack, believe it or not, is on the bottom, which is something we haven't had in iRacing for a couple of years, at least properly. So this is a new dynamic that we haven't seen in a while. And everybody, including us, is learning how this is really going to tangibly feel. We know in theory what could happen, but we haven't seen it like this in a long time.
Well, it pays to be an early adapter, and if the early adaptation is going to work, it can be a high-risk maneuver, but Henry Bennett has picked up almost 6 positions. He's just driving past people on the bottom of the racetrack, and every single person he passes is going to notice that and maybe get a little more comfortable with the thought of going down to the bottom. He's now up to 6th from, I think, 13th when I just mentioned him about 5 laps ago. He's motoring through the field.
Yeah, and the other thing is also track temperature as well. Now, as the track temperature rises, that rubber difference is going to get even more discrete. Again, the hotter the racetrack is, the slicker it's going to get. More rubber means more temperature. And 106-degree Fahrenheit track temp average right now, but that could certainly change. Halfway point this time through. Pavelski will lead at the halfway point of the SimTV 225 here at Chicagoland Speedway for the Coca-Cola of Kokomo Indy Elite Series. So now we've run about 25 laps since the restart. Within 15, we'll see drivers coming back down to pit lane. But they'll probably try to stretch it a little longer and get closer to their pit window to make it to the end.
Andrew Wood now has maybe noticed Henry Bennett in his mirrors or something down low. He's sliced up to 3rd. Holliba picks up 4th. Burton is the one falling the wrong way.
It's just interesting to me to see how evenly this track is rubbered in. Really, it's from half a lane up the racetrack to half a lane from the wall. That's really where most of the rubber is. And you can see not a lot of people going outside that invisible boundary. Holliba into 2nd discreetly and slid into P2, and here he comes on Pavelski. I think Holliba might be the best driver on the racetrack right now based on lap time. That's not quite accurate, but he's awful close.
It's got a good look, but he's on the side of the racetrack that we think is maybe fading a bit, and sure enough, you see he just makes no progress when he looks to the higher side of the racetrack. Pavelski still leads this race and has the fewest laps of everybody in the field on this fuel run. Jason Brophy is the first to come to the pit lane. Interesting strategy call here.
It is. We're running about 0.6 off of our fast pace on tires, so he could be trying an undercut here, knowing that without significant fuel saving and a lot of luck, you're going to have to pit twice before the end of this race. So I like that call. Do something different. You're not going to win from 15th. Might as well try something new. So is Ray Kingsbury. Oh, is there a spin or a crash? No. Matt Kingsbury pulling off with Ray with him.
Working together potentially, obviously. Teammates with the liveries and the last names both. We're right on the door of the first pit stops having to happen again. Andres Eich is working lap number 40. David Adams working lap number 41. Most of the drivers in the high 30s on the run on this time through, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of cars on pit lane in the next 5 laps.
Now I'll try to grab some undercuts here as Alex Ball hits pit lane in the number 12. Haven't talked about him yet tonight. Running in 26th right now as he peels off the pit lane. Started in 30th. Front 3, here comes Andrew Wood with a run. He's going to go to the inside lane as there's Brophy rejoining the racetrack. Is Brophy on the apron? He is. He's coming back down pit. No. Just rejoin the racetrack and just running on the apron. Not sure why. But getting up to speed and just trying to stay out of trouble maybe. That certainly lost him a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, it looks like he almost lost an additional lap because of the seemed to be an inability to rejoin the racetrack because of the traffic.
Yeah, strange one for me. I don't really know what happened there. As we work lap number 82. Should see a handful more drivers peel off, but it seems like to me it's either you're committing to an undercut or you're going to go all the way to the fuel runs out. I don't think there's any real in-between that you could really pull and have work out for you.
See just how much fuel some of those front runners saved by running mid-pack this time through. Andres Eich now on lap 43, Henry Bennett on lap 41. Some of those guys are going much deeper than they were able to the first time through.
Yeah, so to make it to the end from here, or I guess to make it to the end, the farthest anybody could go is about 45, 46 laps from what we've seen so far, which would mean a pit stop at what, lap 104-ish would be the latest you could go, but that's a whole other 20 laps from now. You're not going to go that, so you're going to have to make that pit stop soon.
Yeah, I think that was potentially a really good call from Brophy to pit early. You realize how much they were running flat out. There's almost no opportunity for fuel saving.
But the reason why Brophy was in trouble is because of this. As he came out of pit lane, watch what happens here, Tom. He's under acceleration at the exit of pit lane. And spins out. That is why he lost all that ground, as he had looped it. He was below the white line, so the caution didn't fly.
Wow.
But that would explain why he's now 2 laps down. And that strategy might have worked, but now he's got a big hole to dig himself out of.
Yeah, he sure does. And honestly, these drivers would have to, everybody in the field would have to go past up to 50 laps on this run to make it till the end, or even have a hope to make it till the end. The highest number of laps on the track right now is Henry Bennett at 44. Looks like Andreas Eich actually came to pit lane a couple of laps ago, or is on pit lane now, I'm not sure, down there in 24th. So he is also banking on 2 more stops. We might have been a little premature assuming that they might be able to make it on 1 more.
Whoa, Halaba locks it down, just makes it to pit lane behind Pavelski. It was a pretty sunset outside. Thanks for the note. Tom sent me a very discreet note that the sunset was very pretty outside right now, and indeed it is.
It was very pretty.
I missed most of it, but we're trying to make things happen here. So Andrew Wood leads the way at lap 87, and he's going to stay out another lap. Here's Adam Blocker with him as Bennett's going to peel off, and whoop, is he going to make it? He's been really daring so far. That's about as close as you can cut it.
He seems to have rehearsed that, though. I think he's pitting later to stay off the apron. That was 44 laps, crossing the line for 45 laps completed on that pit stop, that run, that stint, I should say. So it is effectively going to be 1 more full run and then a splash and go at the end. I don't know if it's even going to be worth taking tires for the last one. Adam Wood to the pit lane, or Andrew Wood to the pit lane next time.
He's got Riley Thompson with him. Whoa, here's someone sailing in. That's Doc. He's not going to make it. And that will be a penalty for an unsafe pit entry. And that's what happens when you, again, precarious pits. Came in, just couldn't get it woed down, and got to make that yellow cone, and he didn't. So
actually, it looks like he might have even had some contact with Philip Kraus trying to get off the grass onto the pavement on that pit lane. I saw them kind of bounce off each other very mildly. Obviously, they're only going, what, 45 miles an hour at that point? Hopefully harmless for Kraus, at least.
Should be. These cars are strong enough until you hit them into something at 200, and then they fall apart like confetti. So, or I guess the word, what am I looking for? Fall apart like paper mache.
Paper mache.
I knew it was some paper product. I just couldn't remember which one it was. Here's Watkins on pit lane from the race lead. 60 laps to go as Kinsella takes the top spot.
And just in front of him is Brophy getting his lap back. So now he leads on the racetrack as far as track position is concerned. But has a long way to go before he gets back up to where Kinsella is, the actual leader.
Yeah, Brophy's going to need a couple cautions and some luck to catch up as much as he needs. The unfortunate thing is that we don't have enough time left for that to even really be realistic in terms of making up that ground in green flag conditions or sort of play some fancy strategy. He's in a hole too deep to climb out of, I think.
So Kinsella, the green on the high side there, and Tony Schowen, the white car in the background, are the last 2 at the front that have not made their pit stops. The Ray and Matt Kingsbury pair pit about 10 laps ago. They're running in formation 3rd and 4th.
Whoa, there's Tanner Watkins spins and caution.
I think he was just clear of the white line, so that's going to bring that caution out, and maybe that is that what Jason Brophy needed?
Maybe it'll help him at least 1 lap. But the problem is I don't think we're going to see a lot of people pit. You see there's just a simple, easy loop for the 24. No one's going to pit here, I don't think, because you still can't make it, and you just already came to pit lane. So
would he get a wave around?
He won't if everyone stays on the racetrack. So have everyone on the lead lap has to pit for that to be eligible.
He's got a very good chance at them pitting because Kinsella and Schowen, who are leading, are both right at the end of their windows. They've got to be running on fumes at this point, having completed 46 laps each on this run. There is an outside chance that Jason Brophy gets lucky here, right?
Maybe.
Am I not understanding?
Yeah, again. Oh, you know what? You're right. No, he is going to get a waiver. Yes, he will. You're right. You are correct. As the front 2 are going to hit pit lane, that should mean that everybody that remains on the racetrack is a lap down or more. They will all get the waiver round, including Jason Brophy, who is the last driver who is 1 lap down. Mike Kitchell is 2. So nice eye. You are correct. Just like earlier today when we were shopping for outdoor furniture, I told you that if I'm saying something stupid, you got to tell me.
You should go buy a lottery ticket, though, because that spin really could have ended his race.
Except you're picking the numbers because you've got the luck today.
Maybe it should be me. I don't know.
The luck of the Irish or something. Kinsella and Schowen are into their box. There's the pace car.
Look at that manufacturer vehicle up the inside.
Grabs the spot. I've been warming up to the look of it. It's better than having a 2006 Ford Mustang lead the field, that's for sure.
Or a new BMW M4.
Yeah. Wow.
There it goes.
That took me a second. The gears are turning in my head tonight. Man, it's been a slow day for me. I'm not sure if you can tell. I didn't have coffee this morning, and I was, I could have. I knew there's so much coffee in it. It's not like it's hard to find.
It's even how you want it.
I know. But
So this is the second time somehow the 20 car keeps ending up at the front of the line every caution. That's John Downing is once again stuck behind the pace car before he will, I think, inevitably get a wave around.
the problem is every time that this has happened, he's ended up another lap down. So he's 3 laps down at this point.
Just wrong place, wrong time for the 20 car. But this is going to promote the Kingsburys to the top 2 spots, I think, on the track. And these are the only 2 drivers that are really out of cycle.
Correction is that Kinsella and Shawan are going to cycle up to the lead. Kingsbury and the Kingsburys will come around the racetrack to be 3rd and 4th for the restart.
Okay, so but either way, they will still be. They have 14 laps on their pit stops on their stint right now. It'll probably be closer to 17 by the time we get the green flag. But everybody else has essentially just come through the pit lane on this caution or just before it. So the 21 and 25 are the only 2 that I can really say are very off of everybody else's strategy here.
This has been a weird race tonight. The multiple grooves, which I think we knew would be a factor, but not to this extent. The cautions right at pit cycles twice, and it's been a sort of a revolving door at the front. I think we've seen track position be pretty hard to get back. Adam Blocker took a little while to get back to the front. Now he's buried in 7th again. So this has been a weird race strategically, and we still have 55 laps to go. And what do you do now? Everybody's going to have to pit again. Do you split up? Do you come as soon as you can? Do you run the tank out of fuel and come at the end? Do you split it in half? What do you do here?
It's tricky because I don't know that it's going to pay off to be isolated from the rest of the field. You almost want to be at least with somebody else, which is why I'm going to really keep an eye on the Kingsburys, because they are definitely running in formation. They pit the exact same time, nose to tail, and they have a little bit more slush in when they can take their pit stops than the rest of the field. The rest of the field has to do almost another entire stint plus more. These guys can kind of have a bit more to do right now before they take their final stint. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't know enough about this to actually make a call. I don't think.
You'd think that I would, but I don't, just because of how wild this has been.
Well, we've never been here before, as far as we know. I mean, this is not only a lot of variables going on because of updates recently to the simulator, but just in general, I don't think EV cars with this series have been here.
So now the field will get another wave around here, and I would expect that we'll get another lap of caution just to fill in the gap here, make sure everyone's caught back up. We should restart then on lap number 98, but we have yet to see the lights come back on the pace car.
The other driver that is pretty far off cycle is Andreas Eich. He's got 11 laps on this stint. Everybody else has 7 or less. So that will potentially also give him a little bit more flexibility.
Well, coming out of turn 4, lights are still off. And the pace car is going to make the hard left onto pit lane, lap number 97. We will get the restart. That was a late pull-off. Man, that guy he's hauling it down to the pit road. 97 laps complete, and we've got just over 50 to go. Green flag back in the air. Kinsella leads us to the green. A little bit disorderly here. Pavelski with a big run on the outside. And slow for car up on the top. That is Adam Dock, who's 3 laps down.
Yeah, having served that penalty for missing the pit entry on that caution period just before it anyway. Slots back in line, but Kinsella drove straight to the bottom of the racetrack on the restart, and everybody tried to follow him, so that's what caused that bit of disorderly flow. There's another lapped car involved here. That's the white car on the high side. It's actually
the 51.
Shawan, who's following Bennett at the bottom. It's the 51 of... You go for it.
I was corrected on how to say this name, and I don't remember what it was. So
pins. It's Lester Rocek, I think, is how you say it. And it's pinned Jason Brophy to the high side, really getting in the way here as a car that's a number of laps down. This is very intense for Brophy, having just gotten that lap back, correctly? Or did he just miss out on getting the lap back? He did. He just missed out, so he's actually trying to get his lap back along with Lester Rocek. He's going around. Finally gets through and slots in behind the leaders. So we thought Brophy was getting lucky. He did not.
Yep. Wow, he just scaled the wall there in turn 3, climbed up to the high side of the racetrack. But Kinsella leads this way. There's Tony Shawan on the inside groove. It's getting spicy up here for position, though. Brophy wants to get himself back on the lead lap. This would put him back on the lead lap. If he were to get a caution now, he'd be in great shape. But with 50 laps to go, I think that's a likely situation. And let's see if he can put himself back in contention.
There's a lot of shuffling behind him, so that's what breeds those cautions. But only two of the cars in the top 5 on the racetrack right there are actually for position. The rest of them are all laps down trying to get that lap back. Then the rest of the field is for position.
I know that you're not much of a NASCAR fan, Tom, but Larry Mack always says that cautions breed cautions.
Oh, yeah. That trickled into the sports car world, too. Dorsey Schrader loved that one.
Down the back straightaway, cautions breed like rabbits, like they would have at Belle Isle last week, but no full courses there. There's Holliba, who led some laps or got himself up in contention earlier in the day. Well, he hasn't led anything yet, but was awful close.
We know that the cars can do around 45 laps at maximum, and we got the green flag with 52 left to go in the race. And I was kind of wondering if anybody would be ballsy enough to make the call to try to do it on no more stops, but I really don't think anybody's going to pull it off.
It's just, trouble behind him. There's a spin, and it's Andrew Wood, crash, caution. And now we've solved our fuel mileage issue almost.
We sure have. That's going to throw a big strategy wrench into everybody's day. And the other car involved, I think, Adam Dock, who had just been dealing with that penalty, so bad to worse for him.
I think it's going to start. 99 gets in the wall, and Wood just can't slow down.
Yeah, caught the safer barrier on entry. There's a third car.
You see the piece of debris go over the fence.
That third car was Andres Ike.
Was it the 76? Oh, yeah, it was. The 76 car. Here's a look. That's huge for he's the points leader coming into the night, and it has been bad to be the points leader lately in IES. Oh, just caught it at the end, and that car is destroyed.
Lifted and didn't want to do anything to make the car spin. He just couldn't change lanes fast enough. So now 2 of our top 3 in the championship are out. Demerit not making the field. Kraus crashed.
Watch this piece of debris.
Ike, sorry.
Watch the piece of debris just go sailing over the fence and into the camping area. Someone got a free something or other, whatever you call that doohickey on an Indy car.
Free doohickey.
Free doohickey. Yeah, it's just, you can't slow down. You can't just stomp on the brakes and make it stop. And then, wow, the 76 got a big hit there.
And check out who barely made it through. It was Philip Kraus, who is in the white and pink, just behind Ike, teammate. So that could have been a disaster for all 3 of our top 3 in the championship very quickly.
Yeah, everybody's going to hit pit lane while we're watching these replays, which means that when we get the restart, well, we're pitting now with 46 to go. So everyone with a little bit of fuel saving should be good to make it to the end. Here's a look from Andreas Ike again.
Nowhere to go.
That thing's junk. Got a broken Pinocchio nose on the front of that thing. Will grind to a halt just shy of pit lane, but that's pretty much destroyed.
That's heartbreaking. So now the door is swung wide open. The driver that stands the most to gain here, especially with the conditions around him, I think really is Philip Kraus. Now, 30 points back in the championship, but the other 2 drivers, what's that?
Looking at Jason Brophy, that's the caution he needed. He's going to get all the way back around. Now, he's got nowhere to go but up. He's right now 22nd. This is the worst he could do, essentially, unless he crashes. So I'm going to say that this yellow car is going to be super aggressive on this next run. And we'll see if it pays off for him here. He's also got 1 lap, well, I guess a half lap. Again, fuel consumption on pace laps is generally about a half of what a full lap is. So we'll see if that really pays off, having that 1 extra lap that he was able to conserve. But we're going to get a restart with 42-ish laps left in this race. Again, everyone's pitted with 46 left. So you should be good unless you don't pay attention. If you just go full throttle from here to the end, then you could get yourself in a tight spot. Yeah,
I think you'd have to be a bit of a fool to not make it till the end at this point. Every opportunity to do so is there for sure. Anybody who was off strategy, you're back on the same strategy. We're looking down the list of everybody's got 1 lap on this stint, outside of a couple down at the back. So this is pretty much a straight-up sprint race to the end, I think, at this point.
Well, our race has been sort of split into really 3 distinct sections, and it was all in between the cautions. The one we just had most recently was the first caution we had, not bisecting a pit stop sequence, but it was at just the right time to be on the outside of the final pit window for this 150-lap race. We've got 45 laps to go this time by, and we'll see if we get the 1 to green this time through, and we will. 45 laps ago, that's the length of the first stint that we ran. Do you have a favorite here, Tom? Can you pick me a driver? Because I'm looking at Kinsella. He started up front, now he's up front, but can he stay there? I think the leader's had a pretty strong pretty strong house up front today. They haven't been able to get past, at least not on the bottom.
Yeah, it seems to be near impossible to get past the actual leader, but second on back is really kind of a crapshoot. A couple of cars that have made massive progress in situations like this, Henry Bennett, he sits 7th in the 007. That car made progress from 13th to 6th on the last run. And the cars around him are all the front runners from the first stint, essentially. Blocker, Kraus, Stouffer, etc. So it's tough to say. Matt Holliba is also right there in 9th, and he was really racy in the second stint. So it's just kind of a matter of who's adaptable at this point to get their car back up towards the front, because I think the conditions keep changing.
Well, and speaking of conditions, have a look here at the weather. The track has dropped 4 degrees Fahrenheit since its height, so that the track's cooling back down again. And as the sun gets a little lower, it's going to cool off. That means a little bit higher grip, and we're going to see probably the raciest track that we've seen all day long. Time to go racing again with 44 laps to go. Kinsella out front, green flag back in the air here from Chicago. Calm before the storm. We're always kind of winding these things up, and you let them go after a couple laps. And
after 2 of these, it's going to be not so single file as they are on screen right now.
Kinsella sticking to the bottom. Wow, look at Pavelski. Huge run on the outside. Look at where did he come from? He just shot out of a cannon coming around the outside to the race lead.
Bennett didn't even see him coming, Kinsella didn't even see him coming, and all of a sudden, too, Ray Kingsbury's coming with him.
Hold on. We got to go back and have a look at how this run formulated.
Oh, he's got a massive gap up to the next car. That's probably a half a second on the screen, but 10 car lengths, that's going to give him a huge pull down the back straightaway.
Yeah.
Check how quickly Matt Kingsbury enters his screen. Oh, my goodness.
There's Pavelski. Kingsbury behind is going to do the same exact strategy. Look at, I mean, they're now 1st and 5th. It didn't work quite as well for Matt as it did for the other Matt, but now Ray Kingsbury to the outside. Those guys just shot to the front.
Well, we talked about Kingsbury and Kraus both having the biggest potential to gain from tonight, with the other cars around them in the championship not in this race anymore. Demerit not in the race at all. Ike no longer in the race due to an incident. So Kingsbury, 4th in the championship, now leads this race.
There's Chris Stouffer back in the fight back there for 9th. And hearing that some drivers might also be lifting, so maybe not totally set on fuel. Again, 46 was the longest we saw anybody go. That was with a half a caution lap and also being in the pack the whole time.
Correct.
So if Pavelski's out front leading this thing, he better be confident that he can make it.
It's going to be tough, too, because they did get the green flag with 4 caution laps on the stint. So call that 1 to 2 green flag fuel burns, you know. So they didn't start with 0. They started with effectively 1 or 2 laps on the stint. So they're going to have to go closer to 46, like we've been seeing a couple drivers stretch it, but there is definitely going to be fuel saving.
Outside line forming again. Only took it a handful of laps. This time it's starting from a little bit deeper in the pack. Adam Blocker is the one spearheading that, but he's going to tuck back in line. That will leave the trouble. The 15 car hits the fence. A.J. Burton just gave it a scrape, almost got run into it again in turn 1 behind Stouffer.
Got away with it. We saw some damage for him, but that was just due to internet miscommunications. He looks to be okay, and now has a run on the back of Chris Stouffer.
Nowhere to go, though. Track's blocked. And Adam Blocker, again, peeking out on the high side, but he's not committing to it. Not sure if I'd rather, be really committed or just kind of peek out and see if I can get the advantage when I can. A.J. Burton is going to get squeezed here if he's not careful. Kinsella is saving fuel in the 3rd spot in the 14. At least that's the reports we're getting. So a little bit of a lift there, but look at the pack behind him, 3 wide. I think if you're saving fuel that you want to go up a gear, but I'm not sure RPM. It's more about throttle position than RPM.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be, wow, the 13 car is in the middle of a sandwich. That was dicey through 1 and 2.
Oh, this is just begging for an incident, but everybody's super clean so far. Burton again stuck against the wall. Stouffer puts him way on the high side in the kind of teal chrome car. And Philip Kraus, look at him.
Whoa. Oh, that's trouble. Oh, the 15's going to get turned in front of the field. Caution out, crash, and they're going to pile in. Big crash on the front straightaway. The other car involved. Wow.
Kraus and Bennett both involved, and now they really collect a bunch of cars at the back of the field. So now all 3 of our top 3 in the championship are out of this race.
Liam Quinn just stopped. He just came to a stop. It was one of the cars that I couldn't quite get a view of who it was. It wasn't Ike. It was Well, have to go back. Well, A.J. Burton's car is destroyed. So caution out with 35 laps to go. And this will certainly make sure that everybody can make it to the end from here. But
it's just all that lane changing was making me really nervous, and that's what ended up causing this big one.
Yeah, he's going to come out of turn 4, up against the fence, turns to the left, and then comes across the nose of Kraus.
Kraus and Bennett both.
The is that the 54 car? Yeah, A.J. Musselman in the 54 is one that comes sliding down the racetrack. He didn't really have anywhere to go.
There's also the bright yellow car on the top of the racetrack, in addition to a white and green.
Oh, Mike Kitchell is the 04. He gets tagged right there at the end, spins down and collects Kraus even after the fact. There's our big one for the day.
It's certainly the big one. At least 7 or 8 cars involved in that. Kraus, Burton, Musselman, Ench, Kitchell, I think, are all. Yeah, Kitchell was the bright yellow at the top of the racetrack too. So
Ench is still rolling. Musselman is also destroyed pretty good. A.J. Burton's car is just absolute junk. Kraus is done for the day. Carlos Gomez managed to miss all of it, but I gotta go.
There was one more car. It was a white and green car that got a little bit of collateral damage at the very, very end. I'm having a hard time finding who it was.
I think of who that could have been. Either way, there's Alex Ball leaving pit lane. So a bunch of drivers came to pit lane from 9th on down. Tony Schowen will be the first of those. One of the drivers that also came to pit lane was Jason Brophy. Now he's back on the lead lap. He's gained a couple spots. He's going to be dangerous. I didn't really get a good chance to see how far he was climbing up even on that short run, but he's back in the game now. Also, the drivers from 8th on forward have 13 laps on their tires, which is going to be a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And they're probably good on fuel, but they were saving prior too. So if it's that close, they're probably good. But if they were far off by 2 or 3 laps, then I'm not sure that they're quite in the window just yet.
Well, even with the caution, I think everybody's probably really good. I would put money on that everybody that pit just took tires. Maybe a splash, but the fresh tires is definitely going to help. There is the car I was looking for.
Yeah. Thanks to Adam Crane working behind the scenes here to help us point out the cars that get involved with all the smoke and clouds. Hard to find which one is which, but Trevor Greenfield out with crash damage for Last Lap Motorsports.
So that leaves 20 cars out of 33 starters circulating in this race. Ray Kingsbury is in a very good position right now. He's the top running car in the championship that is still in this race. He's 44 points back from Andreas Eich, only 11 points back from Christopher Demerit in 3rd, so he can really leapfrog up here. Henry Bennett is also off track, correct? Did he not receive enough damage to continue?
Henry Bennett is trying to find him on the timing screen.
He is 5th in the championship,
he is
which
still
means
rolling.
Only one of.
Oh, well, that's not.
Is that a glitch or is that real? Is this real life?
I can't imagine that he would still be out there dragging the front end around. It's real.
If he's there, then he's still.
We're being told that this
there,
is accurate.
Yikes. Well, either way, Kingsbury is the only car healthily running in the top 5 of the championship.
So the reason why he would be doing this is because there's a handful of cars that just got taken out. Now, if he runs a couple laps just scraping the under tray of this thing and passes those cars, then he can come retire the car and grab a few positions in the process. So just trying to salvage something from the day. But going back to the fact that we only have 20 cars left, the attrition this season has been far higher than in seasons past. The way this car races, the tracks that we've gone to have really led to the attrition level being higher than we're used to as he's going to come on pit lane and retire this car.
I have to imagine that's down to the new damage model, too. These cars
very
were
much
certainly
so, yep.
not nearly as punishing as they are now to have a wheel fall off. That wasn't possible before. So you might have finished races with 10, 15 degrees of steering damage on your car, but you weren't finishing the race on 3 wheels.
Right.
And now you would be.
Yeah, the problem is the racing is very realistic from a looks standpoint. The damage is also now realistic to match it, and that is a problem when you have people that aren't in a real Indy car that don't have the real consequences. You're willing to go for that gap, and it doesn't always work out, Tom. So, as you know, the sim is not the real world, and their consequences are not equivalent. So people are a little bit more willing to do some crazy things. I know there was one driver that I know personally that went 3 wide on the start of a Bathurst race through the pit lane entry and passed like 6 cars.
Who would do that?
I don't know, but
sounds like an idiot.
He sounds like that was not smart.
It was me, by the way.
It was. hooligan.
We didn't clarify that well enough, I should say. I'm not out here calling strangers idiots on live streams.
I mean, that's sort of our job. But, you know, they're not all strangers. They're not all idiots. Some of them are idiots. Not most of these guys aren't, but
I'm sure they're all very nice people.
they're all very nice people. Hey, you can still be an idiot and be a nice person.
That's true.
It is true. All right, green flag. Ray Kingsbury out in front. And we're just over 30 laps to go. We'll see who can win. Again, spooling up the action here. It's going to take a lap or two for the Hurricane to get rolling.
Well, we saw that massive draft down the back straight really work to Pavelski's advantage last time. Look at how much of a run he's going to have this time. He's got that massive gap again. Gets the draft off Kingsbury.
Yeah,
and
look
it's
at this.
closing quickly.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the 74. I would have thought he'd work together here with his teammate Kinsella just a touch, but he big push through 3 and 4 up to the top of the racetrack, maybe trying to build a run. And he might be aiming to do this in turn 3, but here comes Pavelski to the outside of Kingsbury.
Really pins him to the bottom of the track, too. Kingsbury's flirting with that apron that you really want to stay off of. Keeps it to the bottom on the back straightaway. Not much of a run from Pavelski. Where's Kinsella in the background? Certainly his nose cone will enter the frame any second. Oh, he doesn't really have a run either.
No, and I think this is partially down to almost having 20 laps on the tires already. Across the line, 29 to go. Deddy, we have not seen anybody really without a big run coming. They have not been able to pass the leader on the outside yet. This continues to be the case, but Pavelski's got a big run now. Can he clear him? Can he dies in the wind here on the backstretch and isn't able to pull ahead or clear of the inside line?
Ooh, here's some runs happening. Blocker and Kingsbury both. Blocker in the blue, Kingsbury in the white. They both get a run around the high side of Kinsella in the green at the bottom of the racetrack. And they're really working the wall now. I was just going to wonder if Matt Pavelski committed to the top of the racetrack, if he might get a better slingshot. There's a bit. This is still kind of a repeat of last 2 laps.
So, correction on my statement from earlier. The white line, the apron on the front straightaway, is not eligible to be used to pass cars, except for the last lap.
Oh, because why not? Let's make things interesting. Well, speaking of interesting, Kingsbury gets loose, loosens up. Blocker, I should say. Got my words mixed up there, but that was a really hairy moment between Matt Kingsbury and Adam Blocker. Kingsbury gains some advantage and really stacks the field up with that exchange.
And it certainly did. And now we've got 5-10 cars all on top of each other. I should clarify, only eligible coming to the checkers, so not on the white flag lap. Look at Tony Shawan going up the outside 3 wide for a moment, and he is running in 7th. The 88 of Jason Brophy is just outside this battle in the yellow car. He's on a mission also, so let's keep an eye on that yellow car as we get through here. Look at this. This is tight for the lead.
Speaking of mission, Tony Shawan was the first of our many cars that just took tires. There he is buried in the middle of the pack, but he's the only one that's made much progress. Holliba's starting to pick some cars off too, but they're going to have a hard time picking off anybody with there's just no racetrack to pick from.
25 laps to go. Tony Shawan on a mission with fresh Firestones on every corner of this race car, but up front, it's 2 drivers on 22-lap-old tires trying to make it stick for the last 40 miles or so of this race.
Adam Blocker, a bit of a cork in the bottle on the top of the racetrack in the blue and black. He's got Stouffer and Holliba behind him. Looking like the bottom of the racetrack is really working better for drivers at this stage of the race, though.
And the leader has just been stuck to that white line all day long. I don't see any reason to deviate from that, but now the line forming on the outside might cause them to rethink. Well, you want to go defensive up there maybe, but then that opens up the inside to get past. I just don't know if that's a thing you want to do.
The thing I'm most nervous about is we're flirting with 4 wide at certain points because everybody is finding speed everywhere. We've been 3 wide a number of times tonight, but I don't think 4 wide is going to work.
No, and also keep in mind that the longer your tires go, the dirtier you're going to feel that dirty air more, as these guys are starting to play Tetris at 220, and I don't like playing Tetris at 220.
No, only 20 cars on the track, and they're all on the same camera shot.
Oh, look at Matt Holliba up the outside. He found a hole that he wanted to try to squeeze into.
Versus Chris Stouffer in the chrome teal, kind of to the middle. I think we were just 4 wide for a second in the middle of the pack there.
We're trying. Oh, boy. Brian Carey almost got turned off the nose of Liam Quinn in the 44, who just narrowly missed that previous wreck by just stopping in turns 1 and 2. Pavelski's pulled even with Kingsbury, but he's not ahead just yet. Next time by will be 20 laps to go. 8 minutes of racing left.
Matt Kingsbury and Andrew Kinsella just buffeted off of each other, both kind of trajectory towards each other into turn 1, but then bounced back. Pavelski is slowly making progress up alongside Ray Kingsbury, but is still not there enough to make a pass.
You feel the understeer from the 14, struggling, had to lift mid-corner, and it's backing everybody up.
I think what Pavelski's doing right now is just trying to pin Ray Kingsbury to the bottom of the track. Look how little space he's giving him very small margins to work with, and it's really giving him the opportunity to work slowly further alongside every single lap. It's almost even on the axles at this point.
This is risky, though, because if you do this and Kingsbury has even the slightest bobble, you're both going to find the barrier at 200 miles an hour. So there's a risk to that. Blocker and Holliba 3 wide with Kinsella on the bottom. And here's that 88. Storming from the back, he has had a heck of a day and back inside the top 10 with under 20 to go. This is insane. This is what IndyCar racing apex is at. This is the closest and fastest you're going to find. We all qualified within 0.2 of a second of each other, and now it's going to come down to less than that at the end, I can tell you that. 17 to go. Next time by, Kinsella moves up to the high side. Holliba in behind, and he's on a mission up there to try to get past both these cars on the bottom. Matt Kingsbury, bit of a bobble on the inside.
He said the closest finish in IndyCar history was here, 24 thousandths, if I remember. I bet that we're going to clear that today.
I would probably argue not with you today, because I think they are probably pretty accurate. Look at this. Here comes Pavelski. That's as far as he's been. Peeks out for a moment, tastes the lead, but he can't take a bite just yet.
These guys getting really comfortable in close quarters with each other. No one is able to really get any closer to them, which is what I'm really fascinated by. Neither of them have a draft, but nobody else is gaining from the draft.
Again, these two dead even. It just feels like everybody's been fighting for first and second, and then third on back is a whole different battle, even though they're right there. The whole day it's been 1 and 2 battling, and then 3 and everybody else.
Look at Matt Kingsbury, slices to the bottom of the racetrack and almost closes the door on Andrew Kinsella, but then has a big arrow push up the track. Whoa. Kinsella picks the spot back up, nearly 4 wide again for the top 4. Ooh, that was close between Brophy and Holliba.
Look at the run Brophy's going to get now. He's going to go 3 wide with Holliba in the middle. Squeeze on exit. No, there they go. Trouble. Matt Kingsbury going to slam the barrier, and we're going to crash. Caution is out with only a couple minutes left, and there's a whole bunch of cars junked. Holliba and Matt Kingsbury crashed.
I think a majority of the field actually cleared that somehow. They might have seen it coming, or maybe because it was just up against the top of the track that it worked out. Only one other car I saw actually involved, and I think it was Riley Thompson.
Yeah, I think he got a piece of that as well. Coming onto the back straightaway here, it's going to be hard to get a good look at this because of its situation on the straightaway, but does I think the Holliba came down the racetrack there, Tom, and Thompson got turned elsewhere. Yeah, have to look at this in slower motion.
No, that's tricky. Yeah, we're going to have to pay attention to the lanes, but it almost looked like Kingsbury was in a bit of a push. He's already washing up the track just a bit.
Yeah, I think it pushes the 0-2 Holliba.
Oh, he was loose, and then Holliba comes down a bit. You're right.
Yeah, and then they're going to slam the wall. Then where does Riley Thompson get turned off the front nose cone of, wow, see the Tanner Watkins jump over a piece of debris and then turn Thompson in as a result of that. Well, let's ride on board with the 0-2 and get a good idea of his steering input here. Because he might have been fighting a loose condition because he got kind of roughed up the racetrack just a touch. Does he turn into it, or does he get loose? A little bit loose there. Turn back to the right, and it still went. It's hard to be the judge of that, really. It's wow, that's a big hit. But one more time in slow motion as we come up off the corner. He's trying to steer away from the driver to his outside, but right there straightens back out and crash.
Yeah, held the steering input just a little bit too long. Got the rear end floating. Unfortunately, 4 more cars out. Yeah. Number of cars on pit lane as well. That's an interesting strategy call.
Yeah, well, maybe just fresh tires at the very end. I want to ride on board with Tanner Watkins. See what he saw. He jumped a piece of debris. Right there, got in the back. He couldn't stop. He got on that debris, and the front tires just didn't have anything to grip onto. And he'll have to come down pit lane and get a front wing replaced, which he has done, so he should be good. So the lead has exchanged hands because Pavelski was nosed out in front when the caution came out. So flip-flop the roles up at the top of the order here, Tom. Pavelski, Kingsbury, Kinsella, Brophy, Stouffer, the rest of your top 5. And my goodness, Jason Brophy, he gets a trophy for something, because that was what the drive. I mean, I need one of those graph things that they have in all the NASCAR stuff where you can show how far down. He was buried laps down for most of the day, and here he is now in 4th with 10 laps to go.
This is quite the comeback. Trophy for Brophy.
I knew you were doing it. I saw the twinkle in your eye. You were going to pull some crap like that.
But I was also going to say, Pavelski, all that work. I mean, he worked that strategy for, I don't even know how many laps we were just out, at least 20 laps from the last green flag, and just pinned Ray Kingsbury to the bottom of the track for that entire duration, and it paid off because the moment the caution came out, he had the nose cone ahead, will inherit the pole for the restart. And I don't know. The question is, did Ray Kingsbury learn anything from that? Maybe he can try the same thing, but it's going to be tough.
Well, yeah, I think you might have to think about coming to the checkers, how you apex out of turn 4 and try to maybe aim for that infield apron area. Also, a note about timing and scoring with these cars. We've seen this in the past happen on pit exit. We saw it happen last night in the Bristol race. The iRacing models, to my knowledge, they model where the transponder is on the race car, which is not in the nose of these cars. It's located towards the rear. So if we have a speed differential and a side-by-side moment coming to the line, it is possible that the driver whose nose reaches the start-finish line first is not the winner, because by the time the transponder in the rear of the car gets to the line, it could be somebody else. So that, I would talk about that in this situation, because we've had races in fuel before with the IndyCar where at the time of caution, the driver that looked like they were ahead was not, and that could happen again here today as well. So if we have a caution on lap 149, if a caution comes out and we're side by side, it's whose transponder is farther forward, which might be someone different than who looks like is ahead. So just an interesting note to pay attention to. We're going to have a 10-lap sprint here, Tom. Got a favorite?
I don't know. Pavelski's done a really good job tonight, and he's actually not a full-time driver. He's only raced in 4 of the races so far, as has Adam Blocker. So those drivers are actually both in the top 10 in the championship with 2 less starts than everybody else. Just an interesting note, but I think it's very tough to say. It's been so hard to pass the leader. Starting from pole is where I'd want to be with a 10-lap sprint here.
I think Pavelski's in a really good spot to take home this victory, as the pace car is going to make its left-hand turn onto pit lane. 4 minutes of racing remaining. It's going to tick by very quickly. It's going to take 3 or 4 laps to kind of spool everything back up again. But Pavelski in the orange 75 is the race leader with 10 laps to go. Green flag back in the air.
Very sparse field down into turn 1. Nearly half the cars out of this race, but Kingsbury might have pulled the trigger a little too soon. He started very close to the back of Pavelski relative to the rest of the cars around. Kinsella is the one with the slingshot, 3 wide into 3.
Here he comes up on the outside, but he's not going to get purchased. Jason Brophy's coming with a head of steam. Does he have enough momentum to do anything with either of these drivers? 3 wide again. Kinsella goes for the spot. All the way on the high side of the racetrack. Can he carry the momentum? Brophy's got nowhere to go. He's going to go try to make it 4 wide. Going to squeeze up the outside of the 14 car, and they're going to touch. Brophy's hard in the fence, and everything that he's just worked for is gone.
Well, we mentioned that we were flirting with 4 wide, and I thought it would go south the moment we looked at it. They were using all 4 lanes on the racetrack. The racetrack is not straight anywhere. Now spin from Kingsbury. No way.
Crash, and Stouffer's involved with it. He's going to pirouette down the turn 1 and 2 area.
Did that happen after the caution came out? Maybe he popped off the throttle?
I think that was the cause of the caution. I don't think Brophy made it to pit lane, so I don't think that that was the cause of the yellow. We're going to have to go back and look.
Such a weird spot for that to happen. Essentially in the tri-oval here, all of a sudden Kingsbury just goes around.
Did he have help? Right there from the 14. Oh man. Stouffer couldn't do anything about it.
But he dodges the flying wheel as well, so we lose 2 cars, 3 essentially on that lap. And you're right, Kinsella just drove into the back of him.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So now all 5 of our top contenders in the championship out of this race. This is going to be a massive shift, and actually the top car in the championship that's circulating on the racetrack is Adam Blocker, who has raced 2 fewer races than everybody in the championship. He will capitalize on this one big time.
Yeah, I'm not sure that race control is going to look kindly to Kinsella the last half a lap. Kind of puts the 88 in the fence there, then goes down to the next corner. And
yeah, he certainly buffed it up.
Directly responsible for the incident with Ray Kingsbury, so I don't think that's going to look kindly on him post-race, but we'll see what penalties are made, if any.
The other car poised to do a big jump in the championship, who we haven't said at all tonight, I don't think, is the 79 of Brian Carey. He's now 5th on the racetrack. That's the white and blue car with the red mirrors. That driver, 8th in the championship, leapt up 7 spots thanks to his good finish back at Detroit, and will now leap up even more as the second highest car in the championship still circulating.
Oh boy, well, every time we come to the ovals, we know it's going to be a challenge. Tonight, though, we had half the race went so good.
Yeah.
And then this is sort of reverse Texas, where Texas was really messy in the beginning, and now we're sort of getting into the messiness now. But we only have 14 drivers left at this point. Well, I don't really know what to think about this at this point. I mean, Pavelski's certainly in the spot to be. But the move that worked that got Pavelski to lead earlier was laying back on the restart and building a run. But that can get you caught in a penalty situation for jumping the restart.
It got him near the front, but actually what got him to the front was 25 or so laps of working over Ray Kingsbury to finally get the nose ahead, and a little bit of luck with the caution coming out. So I have to think Matt Pavelski is in a good spot for 2 reasons. One, he's going to be the hardest to pass, but second, he's going to be immune to big incidents like what we just saw.
We're going to have probably 4 or maybe 3 laps to go when we get the restart here at Chicagoland Speedway for round 6 or 7 of the 2021 season for the Coca-Cola of Kokomo Indy Elite Series. Kyle Heyer joined by Tom O'Gorman tonight, as we're going to get the 2 to green signal. Well, we got Richmond coming up next week on March 28th. Then our 6th annual Indy Elite 500. That will be on April 11th, 2021. Don't miss that. It's a full distance Indy 500. We're hopefully going to have a 3rd announcer at the booth to join us for that one. We're going to try to get some star power. We know some people, and see if we can pull some strings. Of course, right after, on June 15th, well, I shouldn't say right after, but a month later after the real Indy 500, June 15th, our return to road course racing. One of my favorite racetracks in the country, Road America, the National Park of Speed, followed by one of your favorite racetracks, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, on June 27th, then Long Beach. So there's 3 road courses coming up after Indy, and for the road course drivers, that's going to be a real good spot to grab some points.
Yeah, those 3 rounds could certainly be a shift similar to what we're going to see tonight. That's a big ask for that late in the championship. You're going to have to be really consistent.
All right, so coming to the green next time by. I mean, we'll have 3 laps to go. That's just enough to spool up the IndyCar hurricane here. You ever heard of Darrell Waltrip's vortex theory?
I know Randy Popest's.
If you get all the cars zipping around the track fast enough to keep the bad weather away.
Oh.
Yeah, because it creates a rising column of warm air.
Okay.
It's not science, it's Darrell Waltrip, but it's you know, I believe that IndyCar's got a vortex theory. It's going to bring us good luck.
I think I will 100% promise and guarantee that it will not rain at the finish of this race.
Wow, are you a weatherman or something?
I'll put $1 million on it.
All right, Matt Pavelski having a look at his day so far. 20th to the lead.
Wow.
David Adams, who sits down the order just a little bit in 6th, 25th to 6th. This is a driver we haven't talked about all day today in that 00 for the Sadie Sim Autosport team. Look at him just chilling in 6th, Tom. He's in a great spot to grab some more spots, maybe grab a top 5 here at the end of the day. All right. I think I got to pick the 75. I think you pick the 75. Being the leader is the place to be, but can anybody go catch that 75 and rip away a potential victory? The 75 tonight has led 56 laps, over a third of the race. We'll see if he can lead the final 3. All right. How much gap do you leave without getting yourself in trouble? There's a pretty significant gap from Kinsella up to the 75. And here we go. 3 laps left. Green flag back in the air at Chicagoland.
Ooh, that's about perfect, I think, for Kinsella to maybe have a shot at a slingshot down the back straightaway, barring any sort of intervention from the stewards after the race, of course.
Behind him, they're battling just a little bit, but also the 14 car of Kinsella has a pretty big run coming, but so does Schowen and Adam Blocker from 3rd and 4th. 2 laps to go, 3 miles left, and that 14 car's got a huge head of steam. Here he comes. Can he clear the 75? Not quite. Oh, he almost did, and he has. Andrew Kinsella takes the lead out of turn 2 and drives ahead of the 75. Now Pavelski's got to respond. They'll have a lap to do it.
Schowen is really working the high side too to try to get through Blocker. Blocker washes up really quickly in the middle of the corner through 3 and 4. Pavelski trying to repeat the same move. He doesn't have the same run. I don't think it's going to pay off for him.
White flag, 1 more to go. Bit of a bobble there. They touch. Here comes Blocker with a huge run on the outside. Can he go to this top spot? Oh, he downshifts. Bit of a hip check here. Now they're going to go dead even into turn 3, but here comes Blocker. 3 wide. They're going to touch it in turn 1 or turn 3 rather. Side by side through 3 and 4. Coming back to the checkers. Matt Pavelski, Andrew Kinsella to the line. They're going to touch. They almost crashed across the line. I think Pavelski got him. I think Pavelski got him by 0.02 of a second. Unbelievable. By 0.02 of a second.
It was quite tongue-in-cheek 20 minutes ago when I said we would beat the all-time record for closest finish, but we sure did. Matt Pavelski, which I'm very impressed and happy to see that the 75 takes the win on the very last lap there. Kinsella did everything he could.
Would you look at that? 3 drivers within 3.5 hundredths of a second. And Pavelski's going to steal it. He got run down and passed, and they were banging tires coming back to the finish. That was some NASCAR stuff right there. 2,000ths.
That's incredible. And Adam Blocker almost got there, 33 thousandths to first for him. The naked eye would not be able to pick a winner from that one, I don't think, but a touch at the finish line, and Pavelski takes it.
We're going to go back and look at it, that's for sure. As they came, this is actually after the checkers. Let's go back a little farther. Here's a look at the finish here, Tom. And they hit a couple times, but they didn't quite crash.
Yeah, it started with actually Kinsella driving down the back straightaway, which we've said is not straight. He did drive straight, didn't really follow the lanes, and really pinched Pavelski to the high side, but still made it work. There's the scuff.
Yeah, this is going to be, as they come to the checkers here, I'm going to have to find an angle that shows it best, but at the line, that is your margin of victory. That's a 1/4 of a wing. 3 wide across the finish. Kinsella all the way down on the apron, but wasn't quite enough to hold off Matt Pavelski right there at the end. And it all began again with that run down the back straightaway. He was kind of side drafting here a little bit, picking up some air off or dumping some air out of the spoiler. I thought Blocker was in position to potentially capitalize on this.
I think he was, but if you actually go to maybe Tony Schowen's onboard, down that back straightaway on the previous lap, on the last lap, I should say, you'll be able to see Kinsella didn't follow the lanes of the racetrack so much as he went straight. Look at that. He's moving higher, moving higher, moving higher. It feigned Pavelski a little bit high as well as Blocker. And I think that might have been what sealed Blocker's fate. Kinsella still made it work, though.
Yeah, right there they're going to touch. Then Kinsella dives for the apron to try to do it, and he just can't. But I will give Matt Pavelski all the credit in the world for that. That was pretty amazing. Let's have a look at our race results. Official margin of victory, 0.002 seconds. Then Adam Blocker, 3rd. Good finish for him. Schowen, Malechka, Brian Carey, Watkins, Branch, Quinn steals the top 10, and Lester Rorschach in the 51 comes home in 10th. Boy, that was close at the front. Got a little messy there towards the end, as the ovals typically do, Tom, but that paid off.
Not many other cars finishing on the lead lap. David Adams, Alex Ball, Carlos Gomez. Those cars all ran outside the top 25 for a majority of this race, as far as I can tell. And then that major attrition is going to shift things not only at the finish of this race for the standings, but also in that championship. Man, a number of these drivers finishing so many laps down.
Yeah, this is a rough one tonight for a handful of teams that they're going to have to do some work in the future to kind of get their consistency back, or at least survive the races. We've got our race winner, Matt Pavelski, with us here tonight. Matt, wow, 0.02 of a second. I've heard that it might have been 1,000th of a second, but my timing and scoring shows 0.02. What a drive there at the end. On the restart, you had the lead, lost it on the backstretch with 2 to go, and then come into the checkers, banging wheels NASCAR style, got it done. Take us through that run to the end there, and did you know that you had it at the line?
I mean, the last restart, my car was like loose on the bottom the entire race, so I really just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to spin and wipe out the field. And I just went way too aggressive on my negative weight tracker, so it plowed up the track, and I just didn't want to run over Andrew there, so lifted out of it. I kept getting really good runs on the exit of the corner, so I was kind of torn if I wanted to, do what he did and go down to the apron on the last lap, or if I wanted to try to out-drag him to the line on the outside like I did with Ray. And yeah, he kept getting these really, wide arches out, so I figured I had a chance. We had like a weird contact. It kind of slowed him down, sped me up. I don't really know what happened there. But he went down to the apron. When I saw him go down to the apron, I knew I had to run. I kind of hoped that going down to the apron had slowed him down a little bit, and I looked over to my left, and it looked like I had won. I mean, I couldn't tell at the time because, I don't know if the perceptions are with the cockpits of these cars, but look at the relative after, and it's 1,000th of a second. So yeah, it was pretty wild.
Well, Matt, that was a phenomenal run to the end there for Team I5G. I mean, does this give you momentum? I know we've got, of course, our next event coming up next week at Richmond, and then we go to Indianapolis, and then we have a handful of road courses. Your thoughts on the upcoming schedule, and do you think this can parlay into some more race wins?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we have a lot of momentum going right now between the Elite as well as the Open Series on the official side of it. And so, I mean, when you're feeling like, a lean, mean winning machine sort of deal. But, we feel good. We're still working on Indy for the official 500 as well as the Elite 500. Richmond, I know we have a really good setup for that. And with the road courses, I can't do what I did last week at Detroit and miss the line by 2 inches. It's like I got to kind of lock in on those. But, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. I think we could do some good runs here.
All right, Matt Pavelski wins here at Chicagoland by 2. Well, I guess you on your relative said 1,000th of a second, so we'll go with that. Matt, congratulations. Enjoy the victory. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Second place was Andrew Kinsella by only the smallest of margins. Andrew led some laps tonight, got a little bit messy there at the end, but you prevailed for a second place, almost stole the win, but it got taken away in the last 5 feet. Take us through that run on the restart from the green all the way to the checkers, and your thoughts and reactions.
Yeah, well, before I do that, first off, apologies to Ray there. I was on my screen. I had a couple of feet between him and me there, but I don't know. I didn't get damage, so I don't know if it was actually net code or whether it was just we touched or prediction code. I don't know, but anyways, I was probably a little too close to him, and he came up a little bit. We just touched, but yeah, apologies to Ray because he was doing a great job up front. Him and Pavelski were battling. On the run back to the green, basically my plan was to lay back just a little bit. I needed to get a run. I saw Ray and Matt sort of stall out beside each other, so I knew that if I hung back a little bit, I could get a real good run on the outside. And I'm not sure whether Matt lifted in one there to try and get a draft back by me, but I was actually surprised that I cleared him. I thought I was going to have to hug the outside the whole time. And then just coming off of 4, I should have dived to the apron a little sooner. If we hadn't touched, I think I had the momentum to win. And the lane would do it with the apron open on the last lap. But hats off to Matt. He drove a great race. It was a heck of a finish there.
A really close finish and a really strong run, Andrew. Best of luck to you next week at Richmond. We'll see if you can get yourself another top 5 or get yourself back in the winners column again. Congrats on P2. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Adam Blocker comes home in 3rd tonight by 35 thousandths of a second off of the eventual race winner. Adam, another really strong run coming off your win at Detroit last week, backing it up with another podium here on the Oval. You got to be feeling pretty good about the direction this team and yourself are going at the current point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we were really strong in qualifying, P1 through 6, which I don't think we've ever had that before. That's just insane. And it really should have been 1 through 7 because Stouffer was really close. But so that was really awesome, really kind of a cool moment. And then the race, we went green for a long time, but the second half of the race, everybody, honestly, most people that crashed deserved to crash, in my opinion. They were driving crazy, and I was just trying to survive. And I was just trying to ride up there and survive, and that's what I did. And I finished, and I gained a bunch of points on people. So.
Not only on Netflix, but at Chicago, it's Drive to Survive for Adam Blocker. Congratulations on a P3. We'll see you next week at Richmond.
Yep. See you guys then. Just want to thank Powerslide for all the work, and yeah, see you guys at Richmond.
All right. Thanks, Adam. All right, Tom, wrapping things up here from Chicagoland Speedway. Tonight, certainly a Drive to Survive for not only Adam Blocker, but for a handful of others. A messy one here. But at the top of the order, Matt Pavelski gets his first win of the season by 2 thousandths of a second. a strong finish for what was a pretty wild race.
It was definitely a wild race. Probably a sleeper on the schedule as far as where you would pick to have such an eventful night, but big championship implications tonight and definitely a lot of fun to watch.
Be with you again for Richmond Raceway next week for round number 7 of the 2021 Coca-Cola of Kokomo Indy Elite Series. Kyle Heyer alongside Tom O'Gorman. We'll see you next week at the short track in Richmond, Virginia.